Good morning, everyone, or whatever time of day it is. Get my glass. So take a seat and we'll gather our scattered minds. Cross your legs. Lift the sides of your trunk up. Roll your shoulders back. Spine is erect, the neck is straight, and the crown of the head is facing the ceiling. So your gaze is at eye level, away from you. It's an interesting thing to stop and notice the gaze. It's very hard to do, actually, on a conscious level. But if you're looking at the floor, you need to lift your head. And when you lift your head, you need to lift your chest. And very often, the downward glance signifies a downward attitude in the brain. So when we want to change the way we feel, if we change our posture and then the way we breathe, we can do that. So back chest in, top chest lifting. Bring your hands back up to the tops of your thighs and take your elbows slightly back until you feel an opening at the front of the armpit, and then move the back of the armpit towards the front of the armpit. Your arms are still soft. They're not involved in that activity. That's the whole of the shoulder girdle is making that change. Lifting and opening the chest and stabilizing the shoulder blades against the back ribs. Inhale and expand that whole posture from within. And as you exhale, don't let the chest drop, don't let the gaze drop. And then close your eyes and bring your palms together without disturbing the upper arms unduly. Now, if you tend to be a lumbery person, very flexible in the lower back, draw the sides of your waist back, and everyone can lengthen the outer hips down. So you feel you're very firm and stable on your sitting support. And from that stability, lift the spine up, allow it to float upwards right to the crown of the head. Relax the face and jaw. Allow your breathing to settle. On an exhalation and maintaining the lift of your chest, draw your forehead down. Release your hands. Open your eyes and lift your head. So, bearing all that in mind, bring your palms together and have a look at them. And just notice if your hand is running straight from the bones of the forearm. So if it's running straight from the bones of the forearm, the thumbs won't be up towards you. Because when the thumbs come up towards you, you can feel the outer wrist extends and the inner wrist contracts. So if the outer wrist and the inner wrist are both in line with the forearms, when you bring your hands into Namaste, your fingers are pointing away from the body. They're not pointing up towards the self with the elbows forward. They're pointing towards the person that you're greeting. And the base of the thumbs is somewhere close to the base of the breastbone. And if you adopt this position and roll the upper arms back and take the elbows back slightly, you'll find that the arms feel soft and there's no pain or disturbance in the wrists. Bear that thought in mind. If we then stand up, it's easier to do this from standing, and then think about that around the back of the body. So we're going to do a little work on the wrists today. round the back of the body. When we bring the hands into Namaskar, this is the way I would always teach it, is to bring the fingertips together first, but be down the back. You've got much more chance. And for those of you that can't get there, take your strap or a tie, have your knuckles facing forwards, and start to try and creep your hands towards the tie and roll the shoulders back. See that action there, all right? So if you can get your fingertips together, can you then keep them together? Now you won't, I can't keep the thumbs together, I've got short thumbs, but can you keep as many fingertips together and turn the hands over? Fingers pointing upwards. I'm not touching my back at this point, because what happens is when we let the hands touch the back, as you take the hands up, your little finger catches in the t-shirt and it all goes to rats, doesn't it? So we've got to practice taking the hands away from the back and then trying to see, can we get the little fingers to touch somewhere up the back? Now, another nice thing to do then is open the palms. And you'll notice if you open your palms, your arms roll forwards. And we said we want them to roll back. So in order to roll them back, roll and bring the fingertips one at a time together, trying to keep them straight. Then the thumbs, and then last of all, it's the heel of the hand to press. And that comes from the elbows. So you've got all those options, turning, fingertips and then turning, keeping the hands away from the back, seeing if you can go a little higher, open the palms right up, and then think, let's do this from the arms rather than from the hands and wrists. So the further back we get the upper arms, the less strain there is on the wrist. That's number one. The next one, I love this one, it's like a big personal hug, the Garudasana arm. What I'm aiming at is flexing our wrist, because I want you to feel how the back should feel in some of these wrist balances. If you take your arms around you, so take your left arm above your right arm and wrap your arms around your shoulders, as if you know that thing where you're trying to pretend you're kissing someone when you're a child. And you're trying to walk your fingers towards your shoulder blades. Got that? Yeah? Now, bring your hands up towards each other. Don't disturb your upper arms. Take one palm and put it against the other. Fingers straight. Yes. So you've got to bring the top arm away from you and the bottom arm towards you so that the thumbs are facing your nose. Now lift your elbows up, fingers up, and pause there. Feel that wonderful stretch across the whole of the back. If you think about this, this is Garudasana, the eagle. When you look at a bird, a chicken even, you have a very broad back, don't they, with their shoulder blades, their wings. Think about the eagle's upper back, how broad and strong it is. And then undo and let that release. Don't shake. Breathe. Now we're going to do it the other way. So this time, the left hand is underneath, the right arm is on top, and you're walking your fingers as far around as you can get. The purpose of that is to get your upper arms to cross really high up. Because then when you bring your left hand towards you, your right hand away, you've got more chance of getting the palms in touch with each other. Thumb towards you, little finger away, and then lift the elbows up slightly so they're not resting on your chest. And spread across the backs of your shoulders. So all this is preparation for the upper back, for the wrists, for wrist balances. And then there's one other, let that go, one other preparation, and that is Malasana. So I'm going to get a chair because some of you will be happy to go up and down, but some of you are going to need a bit of support. And you can start from sitting or you can start from squatting. So you could have 4 blocks, but take your heels down and see where you can get to, opening the lower back. So I'm taking my thighs apart slightly so that I can really get my belly down between my thighs, and then rolling back to try and get the weight into my heels. And if you're tired at all, you'll really feel it, because that whole area, that whole sacral area gets tense when we're tired. And I think it's one of the reasons we get a lot of sciatica when we're under stress and having to keep going. So that you can see the action coming, can't you? You can't let the thighs wing out. You've got to keep the thighs gripped in towards the outer shoulders. Then remember the back from Garudasana, and see if you can stretch the heels towards the floor. So knees gripped in, spine lengthening, back broadening, and then come forwards and come back up to standing. So you can do a few of those, and as I said, you can do them from sitting on a pile of blocks. You don't have to be unsupported underneath, and the degree to which you can go down will depend on your own needs. So lots of options there for getting this part of the body to open up and the back, because when you have a look at a pose like Bakasana, if you look at that shape, it's all of those, isn't it? It's the thighs gripping in, it's the rounded back and shoulders, trying to get the outer upper arms down the shins, and then spreading the hands and lifting. So Bakasana is about lifting. Have a go. Arms down, spread the fingers, press the palms, push into the mat and lift. And then come back. I'm not expecting you to take off at this stage. Just get that lovely action going, okay? Now, when you think you're ready to take off, if you're not sure what's going to happen, have yourself a bolster or a cushion, something soft, and then have another go. Squat down. Walk your forearms down your shins, spread your palms. Now grip with the thighs, lift and go. And then come back and stand up. So that's a lovely way to practice. And you'll have good days and bad days, and it'll come and it won't come. But don't ever stop trying. It's fun, isn't it? And the more you practice some of these poses, the better some of the other poses will become. Bit of anatomy on the wrist now. If you think about the wrist, it's got 8 bones in it. 8 bones. It's got 2 different types of joints, 8 bones. And all of those bones have got ligaments joining them together. Tendons. Oh God, I forgot. It's early in the morning. Anyway. And you've got all of the vessels, the nerves, everything, the fascia. It's all going through this one tiny, it's like a dry stone wall, isn't it? All those 8 little bones sitting on top of, in top of each other and besides each other. So we need to keep them flexible. And pain in the wrists is often tendon pain, ligament pain. But we need to keep them moistened, as Gita would say, in order to alleviate some of that pain. Now, when we've got that sort of situation in the whole body, it's places like the wrists and ankles that will feel it first. So one of the things you can do, go to a wall, find yourself a wall and spread your hands, put them on the wall, spread your hands, in a middle finger pointing straight up, thumbs looking at each other, little fingers stretching away. Now walk back until your forearms are parallel to the floor. So your hands have to be more or less at shoulder height. And press into the wall, give it a bit of weight. Now turn your hands out, completely out, so that middle finger is pointing away, absolutely parallel to the floor. Can you push the heel of your hand into the wall? Turn your hands in, so the middle fingers are pointing directly towards each other. Can you bring the heel of the hand to the wall and straighten the elbows? Whoa, that's tricky. But it's hard from one side than the other for me. And it's difficult to keep the index finger straight at that point, isn't it? And then finally, turn the fingers down. So you have to scoop the hands upwards. And I want you to make sure that your middle finger is pointing directly towards the floor, not slightly, but completely. Little finger side of the hand has to come up. Now, can you push the heels of your hands into the wall? Notice how long your arms become at that point. We often do handstand like this, and it's scary to do, but delightful once you're up there. And then release. Feel the energy in the arms now and the wrists. Wonderful, isn't it? Now you can do all of those things on your hands and knees. It's their dog pose work as well. So fingers pointing forwards, fingers pointing outwards, very nice for stiff shoulders. Fingers pointing inwards, very nice if you've got the asymmetric elbows. And then you have to turn the hand all the way around and slide it forwards to do fingers pointing back towards your knees, and push the heel of the hand down and lift the chest up. So all of that work will help your wrists. But what if you've got a wrist problem, or short arms and a long body? Your bricks are your friend. Take your bricks and put your hands on them, and you'll feel that little bit of tension in the top of your hand. When you slide the hands forwards and let the fingers curl over the edge of the brick, the tension disappears. So when you want to do balances, but you've got a wrist issue, let's take Talasana. Whatever. If you use your bricks, sit down. There's no pressure now in my wrist, so I can practice this balance. Now for this one, you need a bolster behind you. And my wrists feel absolutely fine. So take yourself a bolster, 2 bricks. And you stand slightly forwards of the bricks, with your feet slightly apart. Bend your knees and catch behind your ankles and walk your shoulders down towards, down the thighs, towards the back of the knees. Put the heels of the hands on the bricks. As you sit yourself down, look forwards, look up, and take off. And then when you come back down, feet down, stand up. Now, this pose has lots of different stages. I'm just working on the first stage. Some of you will be able to shoot your legs forwards into Siddhasana. Some of you will be able to cross the feet. But I'm just teaching to that stage because it's about the wrists at the moment, not perfecting the posture. So if you want to stop the tape at any time and practice any of these poses, that's what you can do. Tape, showing my age there, aren't I? Okay. Now, finally, for simple wrist balances, really simple ones that anybody can do, sit down on your mat, bring your feet together in Baddha Konasana. Let's turn this way so that you can see. So this is where it begins. Feet together, Baddha Konasana. You've got your bricks beside the hips, and that helps us to lift up when we've got no lift underneath us. But what else it does also is you can lift your bottom off the floor. So you're beginning the process of wrist balancing. You can move yourself backwards and forwards And if you identify the part of the body that's working now, it's the wrists. Now I've got the bricks under my hands. You can just as easily do this on the floor if you don't have a problem with your wrists, but the bricks give you a bit more lift. So you could have your whole palm flat on the brick and lift up. Then we go to the stage of crossing the legs. So let's say we're in half Padmasana. We bring one foot over. Full Padmasana, we take the second foot over. You can then bring the hands onto the bricks and push and lift. Need those a bit wider. Push and lift, and you can swing. So that's another option. Legs forward. So try some of those. You'll need to warm up for the Padmasana, obviously. Now, I wanted to cover those because so many of you have been really having such a great time trying Bakasana and other similar poses, some really wacky ones. So for those of you that have problems with your wrists, I hope that helps. But as this is the final week of the 30 days challenge, it's traditionally our week for recuperative. In the Iyengar tradition, we cover all groups of poses regularly throughout the month. So there's never a point at which you're only ever practicing forward bends or you're only ever practicing standing poses. We do them all and we cycle them over and over and over. So obviously within the confines of your age, stage and ability, that's generally what we're doing. And I wanted to do a bit of a longer relaxation today. And I'm going to show you a really nice way to start to open the chest to practice your breathing techniques. And before you do any heavy breath work or breathing workshops, you've got to know how to open the chest. Otherwise, you're only ever fighting against yourself. And what's the point of that? It's also quite draining on your energy, and it's bad for the brain. So you've got a choice of a bolster. And for that, I wouldn't, if you're new and you've got a new bolster and it's very tall, don't use the bolster to start pranayama. Wait until you've got lots of lift and opening, wait until you're the sort of person that could easily use a back bender before you do that. Otherwise, again, you'll be struggling against your equipment. So a really lovely way to start is to get 3 blocks. And you put 2 down the middle of your mat, lengthways. And make sure they're the middle of your mat. And then you put 1 across the top. Now, however tall you are, if you're very short, it'll be down here somewhere. So here's your spine, here's your head. If you're very tall, it'll be way off the end. So let's assume that's your standard length. And then you can sit in front of it, put your feet together, roll down. So all of you get yourself in this position now with anything that you need, warm clothing, blanket. You can put a bolster under your knees if your lower back needs it. You can also put some weight on your thighs, which is very, very relaxing. If you've got bright lights in the ceiling, you can use a folded belt to help block out some of that light and keep the eyes closed. So I want you to make yourselves really comfortable now. So as you go down over this lift, press with the hands, lift and lengthen the chest, and then release yourself down over the lift. Lovely. Be warm enough. You don't want cold feet at this stage. So first we settle the body and make sure that there's nothing touching that shouldn't be touching, that the surfaces we are lying on are even and smooth. If you want to quieten the senses, you don't want your sense of touch jangling because there's a belt underneath your arm or a spare bit of kit touching your toes. Move it all away, release the body completely and comfortably. And then go a little further inside and relax your jaw, the skin of your face, your scalp. Take your tongue into your lower palate. Breathe through your nose. Externally, the sound of your breathing is silent. Internally, there is a sound. The inhalation is sometimes described as the word so. The exhalation, ha. So, ha. So the inhalation, a word that Guruji uses to describe the internal sound of the inhalation is sibilant, a sibilant S. They were masters of grammar. Well, so was Patanjali. That's why they're so good at English. The sibilant S and the aspirant ha. Notice how if you keep your tongue down in the lower palate, as you inhale, the whole of your nasal passages, the sinuses, those big hollows inside your head that are there for the purpose of purifying the air before it enters the body and warming it and moistening it. They feel very large and cavernous. And the breath reaches somewhere up inside your skull before it turns a hairpin and goes straight down into the lungs. By the time it reaches that hairpin, it is all of those things. It's warm, it's clean, and it's moist. When the exhalation comes, you can't feel that breath in the same way because it's already at body temperature. It's already very similar to the conditions inside your body. So you can't feel it moving in the same way until it gets to the outer nostrils. And then there's a very faint touch of the exhalation on the outer nostrils. The breath that enters is cool and smooth, like a silken thread running up the inner edges, the very inner edges of the septum and the nasal passages. It's a narrow, smooth flow. The exhalation is more like a very soft mist. Now you can become aware of the gaps in between the inhalation and the exhalation. And within those gaps, a change has to come about in the body. So there are two sets of muscles involved, the intercostal muscles, and they have to swap over. One set has to contract and the other has to relax. And then they swap roles. One set has to relax and the other has to contract. What we're doing here is just a conditioning breath. It's where we begin to learn pranayama, where we understand the mechanical actions, our own limitations, the boundaries, the different structures that are involved. So that when it comes to disciplines like breath retention, viloma, ujjayi, really lengthening the exhalation and the inhalation, extending the pauses in between, all of those things, we do those without introducing tension into the body. We do them because we understand where we need to focus our awareness in order to achieve those actions. Now I want you to take a slightly deeper breath in and a long, slow, smooth breath out. And that little action releases you from the ebb and flow of the conditioning breath. And it signals to the brain that soon you're going to be coming back into the world of the senses. But if you take your time through these stages, you can bring some of that peace and quiet with you. So when you're ready to, one at a time, bring your hands onto your trunk, one at a time, bend your knees. Always roll over to your right hand side. Don't sit straight up and wait there for a few moments before you come back up to sitting. It's a very important part of the transition between inward focus and outward focus. And it allows you to come back up to sitting without disturbing your brain. But also, if you're particularly sensitive to it, you may feel that it has a very powerful effect on the lymph. It's very, very refreshing for the lymph. All right, everyone. Thank you very much for joining today. And you should receive a video, and if not, well as be up on the YouTube channel shortly. Have a lovely day.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.